Welcome back. Long time no speak, so to speak. Well, the 1950s machine, this games machine, is all finished and working, which is great, very enjoyable to do. Now what I'm going to do is to get on with something that is currently in its 4th year of design development. Not so much development actually, but, well, not so much design either. But I think I've finally solved the long-standing problem. And what we're doing here is we're cutting out the first, well, I think it's the 5th version, but the first in a couple of years, from 10mm acrylic. And as always, my brain is a muscle, I'm resting the 10mm acrylic on a piece of white card on the laser cutter, and then it cuts beautifully, doesn't set fire to the machine, and even radiuses the back. And I'm cutting it all out in one go without being clever, and getting a load of different colours that then causes the laser and the holes in the cutting to get all distorted and go all over the place. Being too big for my boots. It's cutting this out, which is the Spider display machine. What a wonderful creation. Well, this one is anyway, as you can see. I don't know whether you can see, but it's been sitting in the kitchen for 4 years without being dusted, cleaned or anything else. So that's what it's turned into. But originally, and I'm so pleased to say, I think I finally got it working, it's a reciprocating clock. There's a cam on the hour shaft that pushes a, was it? Yeah, a cam there that pushes the follower, that's right, up, which turns a load of gears and in turn moves the hour point around, which is lovely. And the minutes, or seconds rather, are displayed down here just to show sort of some moving, steadily moving part. So that's great. And I remember 4 years ago when I'd finished designing this, I thought, yes, but there's a gap there, we can't have a gap. What can we do to completely overcomplicate it? As always, it was to add an AM PM indicator, which has caused me nothing but aggro for 4 years. That's the only reason that this is taking so long. I couldn't get it to reliably work. Blah, blah, blah. Let me show you one that's transparent. Right, I might actually even get the tripod and tidy up a bit. So this is what we're talking about. As you can see with this one, because I didn't bother spraying it because it was yet another version, there's the snail cam in there, and that slowly turns, and as it turns, the very, very small bearing on top follows it round and then does that, as you can see. And then once it's reached 59 minutes, well, once it's reached 12:59, it then goes plop and goes back to the start. And into doing, if you look at this funny shaped thing here, and so as it lifts up, it suddenly, even though I'm holding it at an angle, so it's not going to, it falls in there and then pushes this funny shaped cam round, which moves this to AM and PM. This was an improved design anyway, because I realised with the original one that the numbers, the AM and PM, the letters, were so far back and the magnification was so great that you couldn't actually see them, as you can see. Oh well, we're looking at that bit. If you moved slightly off centre, they would disappear. So, because I do like the lenses, as you know, they do look lovely. So I've moved it all forward. Now, the AM and PM legend, which is my new favourite word for gauges and things like this, is just behind the lens, so you can see it from the many different angles. So, well, I've finally solved this, because here's an example of, oops, that bit, the funny shaped cam, I suppose it would be, yeah. I tried all sorts of things, because obviously the high points are here and the low points are here, AM, PM, and it kept jumping around too far. I think I mentioned it in a previous video, and I got some metallic card and pushed it against this, and voila, that was the problem. It was jumping too far as the cam suddenly came crashing down to start at 1 again. So I redesigned it with slightly bigger dimples. It was as simple as that. I think though this, I had probably a dozen or more of these designs fiddling around for hours, and then I'd just get completely fed up with it and come up with a new project or something else to do and then leave it again. But 5th or 6th time lucky, this is now working. The other exciting development, if you look at this one, oh well, any of them actually, I realised early on, because of the tolerances and things, even though everything's laser cut to within 0.01 millimetres or something ridiculous, there's a lot of slack in it. What I realised, the way to overcome that, to keep this accurate, is to always have the hour hand being forced towards 1. And then it takes all the slack up, and then you can adjust it all and it works perfectly. Now, this one, I don't know why, heaven only knows why. Keep it simple, try and simplify everything. So let's add another spacer here and 2 more gears and threaded holes with grub screws and a lead weight there. So you can see this one is kept pushed over to the right or left one, because that weight is always trying to pull down. Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it did work, but absolutely ridiculous. I'm trying, as I always do, something simple or relatively simple that doesn't cost too much. Now, I have decided with an executive decision that I'm going to go back to the original idea, because I really like it, and that's having a little chain wrapped around here, down over a beautiful little bearing, onto some sort of brass weight. That's a bit of lead just for testing purposes, and it works beautifully. It just pulls that always round to the left. Believe you me, I've tried springs, I've tried other sorts of weights and levers. Decided to use this, another executive decision, for the pivots, because I'm using the M4 stainless steel rivets again for pivots or whatever. I need something wide. So if you have a look at the side of one of these, for example, let's look at that. So the 2mm in this case, the 2mm, whatever you'd call that, crank, no it's not, I don't know what that is, strange half gear, is 2mm thick, and that is actually glued onto an axle that is 10mm deep by 10mm diameter, so I can drill very accurately a 4.1mm hole through the middle. Now I was trying to laser cut them, as I say, this was 4 years ago when I was still thinking, ooh, I can do everything on the laser cutter, but you can't when you rely on having an equal hole without any sort of conical shape to it. So I found I had some 10mm solid acrylic rod. You can get 10mm with a 4mm hole through, but the delivery cost was astronomical. For a piece about 2 or 4 meters, I think I was looking at, the actual acrylic itself, which would be lovely, was about £12, and delivery was 35. How fantastic. Isn't it annoying when companies do that? Anyway, I'm going to turn this down on the laser on the brain, turn this down on the lathe, and I really hope that people like them as much as spiders and dust do. It doesn't half take a while when you're doing 10mm acrylic, because it's 1.4mm per second at the 40% that this laser cutter company manufacturer recommends not exceeding. And as I've said before, I've said lots of things before, but I've spoken to people who've got laser cutters and they really push them to the limit. The lenses and the mirrors and the laser tubes all wear out really quickly. I don't mind waiting, because whilst this is cutting things out, I can go on and on and on chatting to you kind people. Where's the huge box of boxes gone, I hear you cry? Well, I got absolutely sick of moving around it and not being able to get to anything, so I've found a storage place. I also coincidentally have ordered a shed, so I've actually got somewhere to put all the other boxes and everything in, which is very exciting. It'll free up lots of room. Hopefully my wife won't notice. Some may say that it's a little bit merveille to just cut everything out all in one go without doing any checks. But I have cut so many of these out in the past, I just want to have some fun. So I've checked all the CAD drawings again to try and make sure that everything lines up and all the rest of it. Solved a few more issues, improved a few more bits. So now I'm cutting out the 5mm acrylic, some of the gears and things. I'm going to cut everything out. I might even engrave all the bits as well, and then sit down and see how nice it is to put together, possibly even with the thought of turning it into a kit. As the kits have been so popular, perhaps offering it as ready-made and also a kit, because I have to say I do like, it's one of my favourite designs, this clock, the reciprocating clock. It looks so nice. And here are the engravings. Note to self, stop designing curved things because it's difficult to get the most out of your plastic. Now if I zoom in, so all the red lines shapes are made up of lines 0.1 millimeters apart. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. That means it's much quicker to engrave at low power. And then from the engraving laminate, black lines will cut right through, and then there's the one little specialist area here which is so fine that I am raster engraving it, which is this. It's nearly done it. As you can see how far it goes. Now you compare that, which has taken 1.5 minutes, to this, and you can see how much more quickly it can engrave things. Right, this refuses to focus. Another day, and I've had a fabulous idea. Bearing in mind I designed this 4 years ago. Yesterday I had planned, as I said, to cut out the shafts that go in the middle and support the rivets, the stainless steel rivets. Some of this acrylic rod that's 10 millimeters diameter, or isn't as it turns out, it's 10.1 millimeters. So having lovingly calibrated all these slots and holes and everything else like that to allow for expansion and things to fit accurately, push fit onto 10 mil, none of them work. How fabulous. And I thought, well, I've got some 10 mil brass rod. You know, I could turn down these things. I was thinking, oh, you know, it could be a selling point with real engineered lathe turned brass parts, but they would take me a long time to do, and as always I'm trying to keep costs as low as possible. And again, I don't think it's going to make any difference. So, to cut a very long story short, I suddenly remembered the 3D printer. It's fantastic. Hit me like a bolt of something or other. I printed these. It means, as you can see, if I snap that one off, well, I'll do it in a minute. Basically, I've got a little lip round them, because that was one of the problems, knowing how high to glue the gears or whatever. So there's a little lip round it, so it just pushes on. The important ones are hexagonal, so that the gears will only fit on, or the pointers, in only one direction. I've even managed to print the funny sort of crank cam type thing, ratchet mechanism, on there as part of it. It is fantastic. I was so pleased. And even look at that. Isn't that amazing? What a lovely example of how this raft, because I want the bottoms flat and the same diameter, if you print them straight onto here, they tend to spread out a little bit. And I'll also put autofocus back on, so I've just realised what was happening. I've even managed to print a form M4 thread in that one, which is the clock, so it fits on, and a little, there, I'm getting overexcited, and a slot in the top for one of the 8mm gems. It's just fantastic. You can see what I mean now. I'm focusing. It's just a joy. And there's the hole in the back, because the rivet for the hand, because it's so long, has to come through the back. I can't tell you how exciting this is. So what I'm going to do now is to have some lunch. I can't have lunch yet. I've just got to keep going on about how amazing these are. Look at that. An M3 screw. I haven't tapped it or anything. It's got the thread printed. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely incredible. And the idea is, with things like this one, that's the acrylic cut part, which is really quick and accurate. I'm going to change the centre into a hexagon, because there's a hexagon, and I always had a problem lining these up, both rotationally and also how deep to make them. And look, I've allowed, because this is big at the back, I've allowed for a 1mm washer, brass washer behind it, just to reduce friction. But then that can only fit on there in one of 6 ways, which will be pretty easy to work out. I'm very happy. Also, to set this up, most importantly, with the gears, to get them all meshing in the right place. The most important thing is to have the arm, the hand rather, the clock hand, free to move, so you can get everything fixed together, all lined up, and then you know, once, if you set the snail cam to its lowest point, you can then slide this round there and then drop a bit of glue on it. And I hadn't done that, I designed it, zoink. So the hand and the gear were both on this hexagonal bit, which was stupid. In order to get to the laser cutter, it really is like one of those puzzles. I'm going to have to slide this in front of the 3D printer. Now I've got that working, so that slides in front of there. Now I can get to the laser cutter, but the shed should be arriving on Thursday, so that would be absolutely fantastic, hopefully. This is all terribly. I've got all those bits done now. There's that bit, if you remember. So that's got the 5mm gear that pushes on nicely in the top, and it lines up with a little notch cut out here, and that then subsequently lines up with something to help you assemble it, or me to assemble it, a little engraved piece there. They need to be lined up like that, and then you know that there's enough movement. So that's done. That lovely crank ratchet thing is done and perfectly fits in this cam, which is fabulous. Showed you that. And we're on to the third iteration of this. There's the original one, which I can't remember why it didn't work very well, but then we went on to the second one, and I realised suddenly it's catch-22. The hand, the clock hand, has to be black. And obviously you want to fix these together and paint them. So you can't, because you can't get the hand off. So, dear friends, and also I thought it'd be nice if this front bit holding the gem stuck out a bit more. I came up with number 3, which I've now, oh, here we are. This is number 3. I'm sure you can guess what I've done. So the gear pushes on there nicely and sits down snugly against that little back. You've got that front bit that can push on there after you've sorted out where the clock hand is going to go, and it just sits proud, which always looks nice. If I can pick up the gem, oh, look at that. That looks absolutely beautiful. I also raised that a little bit. There's the hole in the back here for the chain, so you can glue it in. And then best of all, obviously there's the M3 hole to fix this onto the shaft, but you can just push this on the back, and then you can line it all up, get it all angled perfectly, angular dangle, and then basically just drip a little bit of glue here, a couple of places, and that will fix it in place. I'm so thrilled with that. It shows you try and slave over art drawing, trying to figure out all the pros and cons, but until you see it in parts, well, at least I do, it's very difficult. So I've got all the bits cut out. I've got the 3D printed bits made. There's the original one. I think this is probably enough for another video, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you found it interesting. I can't wait for the next time when I'm actually going to start putting this together and finding lots of other mistakes that I've made, or not possibly. Please remember to click and subscribe if you liked it, and hope to see you next time.